All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the return of Bitcoin Brief with your hosts, Tone Vays and Jimmy Song. Grass-fed Bitcoin mechanic will be joining us in a few minutes as well as we do a little bit of a rundown of this week's stories, even though the show has not aired in what feels like a quarter of the year. Jimmy, how are you this morning, man?
I'm doing great. Everything's picking back up. It really does feel like the beginning of a bull run, but we'll see.
Yeah, I am in gorgeous Malta. So at the resort, talking about bringing understanding Bitcoin back to Malta sometime in 2022. It's time to, this is go time, right? I mean, we're going to be talking about Bitcoin adoption. We got a bull market coming up and lots of great, great things are going to happen. All right. Let's go to the stories. We got some hard stops. We got maximum 1 hour for you guys, and then we are gonna have to get going. Let's go to our stories of the day, and we are gonna kick off, of course, with some shitcoinery, but we are gonna keep that to the very minimum today. So the latest shitcoin to prove to the world how centralized and useless and incompetent it is Solana. Now, I have not heard of Solana until about 48 hours ago. And I was on a show this Monday. It was a Russian-speaking channel. They asked me about Solana. And I basically said, I don't know what Solana is, but it's pretty much a scam. It's kind of like they recently showed that clip of Charles Barkley, the basketball player from the Dream Team in 1992, when he was doing an interview for the first game of the Dream Team, supposed to be the greatest basketball team ever. And Barkley in an interview goes like this: I don't know much about Angola, but I know they're in trouble because that was the first team they were playing against. So it's the same thing. Look, I don't know much about Solana, but I know that it's a centralized money printing scam. And I said so on the Russian channel. And then the next day, I said so on my channel because my audience was asking me. And about 5 hours later, their blockchain shit the bed. And they weren't the only ones this week, but that's the only one that like I had, like my entire Twitter feed is like full of COVID nonsense, right? So it's hard for me to find crypto stories these days. I heard something about Ethereum as well this week, like some kind of miner spoofed a fork and a bunch of nodes. I mean, Ethereum only has about 12 nodes in the entire block. Well, it's hard to even call that a blockchain, but and I heard it like caused some kind of a disruption and some fork, and there were some other shit coins. Jimmy, we're not going to spend too much time talking about shit coins. I do want Mechanic to join us for this topic. So what are your thoughts on this whole thing?
Yeah, it's hilarious because obviously they are completely centralized, and they make it sound like there's a community, the validator community, elected to coordinate a restart of the network. They kept working basically because they couldn't handle the throughput. Solana has been sort of like the hot new altcoin for several weeks now, where everybody's talking about it because they're going up in price very quickly. I believe they're in the top 10 in coin market cap. And of course, this happens every bull market where you have some completely unknown altcoin that suddenly sort of catches fire and everyone pours in. And then an incident like this happens, and it shows just how completely and utterly centralized it is. I don't think they're really pretending. Well, they are kind of pretending that they're decentralized, but as we say on this channel and many other places, it is decentralized in name only. It is a dino, and they are all going to go extinct. I really wish, I forgot to send you the story about what Gary Gensler said yesterday in his testimony, but it does sound like
What did
the
he
SEC. He was basically saying that he thinks it's in the SEC's purview to you know, regulate a lot of these altcoins, which he believes are, you know, securities.
Regulatable. Yeah, they're not a lot. They're all regulatable. Ethereum is
he specifically
regulatable.
carved out Bitcoin as one that he wouldn't. But yeah, everything else he thinks is very much under his purview. So we'll see exactly what happens. But that let me send you a story if I can find one. In the meantime, Bitcoin Mechanic, you could talk about it.
Yeah, Mechanic, you joined us. Yeah, so I replied to the CoinDesk tweet. And by the way, almost all our stories today are coming from Bitcoin Magazine. I think I'm done sourcing stories from CoinDesk. They're just a shitcoin pumping company now. And I'm like, I have to clarify to CoinDesk that Solana is not a blockchain. It is a centralized database.
Yeah, I mean, it's the spec is unbelievable. The spec is just the claims they make are so outlandish. Like the speed.
You actually looked at the spec?
Yeah, like everyone was going on about it about 2 weeks ago, and I wanted to see how shitty it was. And this is the thing, like you're using the wrong. I tweeted yesterday, you're using the wrong tech, and then I corrected myself saying, "Oh, sorry, I forgot. The point is to get naive investors, which means you have to use a blockchain." So sorry about that, guys. I forgot. You do need a blockchain in order to scam people. But if your intentions were what you said they were, then you wouldn't be using a blockchain. No way. Like to have what is it, like a block every couple of seconds? And I saw yesterday you need the validators that had 128 gigs of RAM were crashing because it wasn't enough. So like just the sheer amount of resources you need to be able to be a part of that ecosystem and contribute to it in the way that, like, you know, someone can do with the Raspberry Pi in Bitcoin. It's just so over the top that it's not possible in any way. So, I mean, there's got to be a way of just doing what things like Ethereum and Solana do if we really, really want to have these. I mean, is it just Amazon Web Servers again? Like, or just buying a server? Like, there's got to be a way of doing it where you don't use a blockchain. That just seems to be like the only point there is to scam people. It's not like Liquid, which uses a blockchain and has a use, and it's a legitimate use for a blockchain, even though it is not exactly decentralized. Like, when it comes to things like Solana, I mean, what do you think, Jimmy? Like, you can do it in a apologies, I just woke up. But I think with something like with something like Solana, would you, assuming there was a genuine use case for it, like, you know,
I wouldn't make that assumption. But the thing is, all of these things run way better if you just had a single centralized database and a company were behind it and so on.
Yeah, no, but Jimmy,
but they can't do that because then they would get regulated to death, which, you know.
Right. But Jimmy, that was to Mechanic's point, right? Assuming that there is a small probability that the end result of whatever functionality Solana brings is actually useful to the world, wouldn't that functionality be better served on a centralized database?
Yeah, more or less. Yeah. And, you know, this is what I've been saying about NFTs and so on. If there's any usability or usefulness, it's much better done on a centralized database. And from what I hear, like there was like a huge swath of NFTs that are now moving from Ethereum to Solana or something because of the fees on Ethereum. It's so ridiculous. It's so stupid.
All right, we're not going to spend too much more time on this, but I pulled up the top 10, and I totally forgot a topic. Like the biggest topic of the week was the whole Litecoin and Walmart news. So we are going to add that to the topic list. I totally forgot about that. It was just so stupid. But yeah, so let's talk about that next. You know, this is the top 10 list. I have no idea where the hell Litecoin is. Where is Litecoin?
It was 15th or something.
Yeah, 15, but that was with the pump, with the Walmart pump. It was down to like 20 something. I think Monero is down to number 348.
No,
sorry,
30 something. 41.
Yeah. It's behind Quant and right ahead of the crypto.com coin scam and slightly ahead of EOS. Remember when EOS was like number 4 and it was going to be the greatest blockchain in the history of humanity?
It was like $7 back in like 2018. It's kind of crazy.
Anyway,
yeah, I remember some people I was trying to orange pill jumped into EOS because it had just showed up that week. That was also the week that Quadriga collapsed in Canada, and they were Canadian. I mean, if there's a worse way to introduce someone to Bitcoin, that was my worst experience. I met them on some hike or something, like part of some tour guide thing, and I told them about Bitcoin, and they spent a year asking me questions. I thought I made it very clear that it was only Bitcoin, and then they finally decided to get in and bought EOS and Ethereum and all this stuff, and left it all on Quadriga, and Quadriga collapsed 6 days later with all their money. So it was the worst possible orange pilling I think I've ever done.
Wow.
Yeah,
that is actually crazy. All right, guys. Well, Gary Gensler understands Bitcoin. He understands Ethereum. He understands that Ethereum is not decentralized. He may not say it publicly because that will go, understands what the hell is going on. And he knows that every one of these shitcoins from Ethereum on down is regulatable. And if he has the money and the manpower, he's going to regulate them because he can. But he also knows that he cannot regulate Bitcoin. All right, let's move on to talking about actual Bitcoin. Oh, no, wait. The Litecoin, the Litecoin Twitter handle, the centralized database of the Litecoin network, tweeted out a bogus story on being accepted by Walmart. The mainstream media picks it up. It actually pumps the price of pretty much everything, especially Litecoin, of course, because Litecoin was really lacking in the proof of news department, and they had to do something. So general thoughts, Mechanic, go first.
Yeah, who do we know who runs the Litecoin Twitter account?
Does it matter?
Well, yeah, because whoever it was trying to do a pump and dump, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. It's probably somebody, whoever's the head of the Litecoin Foundation. I'm sure Charlie has admin credentials, but I doubt Charlie would be this stupid.
The only thing, like, obviously it's ridiculous and bogus, and it shows you how much naivety and lack of research there is in the shitcoin space. But aside from that, I did see one person nicely tweet, it didn't get as high as, I wish the pump had taken it as high as it was when Charlie Lee dumped on me, because I still haven't recovered from that.
and that's the thing, and they never will. And even if they recover in fiat, they're going to be down like 98% versus Bitcoin.
Yeah, that's the thing. When people look at shitcoin charts, oh my God, like they peaked at the end of 2017. They never recovered. Shitcoins are in a death spiral since then. It's not all these alt seasons. Well, they systematically never get as high as they once did. Like 2017 was peak idiot, and is that a Litecoin versus Bitcoin chart?
It is, and I have an open bet going that I almost lost actually. The open bet was made sometime in 2020, and it was whether Litecoin will go above 0.008 Bitcoin or will it fall below 0.003 Bitcoin. And 0.003 Bitcoin is pretty much the all-time low close, and the 0.008 was the last swing high back in February of 2020. And it almost went back up there, but now it's coming back down. So obviously, you guys know which side of the bet I'm on.
Yeah, it looks like it's about to break below that as well. That looks, I mean, hold on, what is this, a daily or this is a weekly? Yeah, it's so that little red shadow, that red wick is all they managed to do with that fake story about Walmart, except presumably if it had been a real story, it would have done a bit better than that. But I still don't think it would go above 0.008.
Yeah, so this was the fake story, and this pump back in May of 2021, I mean, everything kind of pumped earlier this year a little bit, so.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so, Jimmy, your comments on this before we move on?
I mean, here's the dynamic that's sort of playing out. It's, you obviously have these fake stories that get planted, and then you get a lot of traders that trade in anticipation of idiots that are going to respond to the news. And then that in turn sort of like causes, that pump action to get going. And then the dump action is just as violent as the pump action. And that's kind of what we saw happen. And we've seen this happen a lot. And it's really like a market of perceptions and, hey, what's the perception of this particular thing going to be? And it's predicting that. And it's not as many idiots as we tend to think. I suspect that it's much more about traders that are anticipating idiots, but it's the number of idiots is actually fairly small. It's all these other people piling on and saying, okay, well, then they're going to be idiots that are going to do this, but it's really them that are sort of like pumping it based on the perception of what the news might do. And I find that dynamic fascinating because it like truth doesn't matter at that point. It's just, hey, whatever pumps the price is good enough. And that seems to be how price action on this stuff kind of happens.
Yeah, back to your thesis on postmodern investing, right? Nothing needs to have any actual value. It's
it's all about just, whatever people want it to be. It's a will to power thing.
Yep.
All right, so let's move on to actual Bitcoin adoption around the world. El Salvador continues to do very, very well. El Salvador's Chivo wallet, which I am not familiar with, probably not even pronouncing it right. So 500,000 registrations in 1 week. I really hope this is a very legitimate wallet because I've never heard of it. And El Salvador to exempt foreigner investors from tax on Bitcoin price gains. Now, this story is a little bit strange because the whole purpose of making Bitcoin legal tender is that they have declared it to be money, and money does not have taxable gains. This was the whole point. This is the only advantage. Bitcoin being legal tender comes with disadvantages. It's not all roses. The disadvantage of Bitcoin being money is that it's treated like money with money laundering laws and the government having a grip on AML KYC laws. Now, Bitcoin not being legal tender doesn't prevent these abusive and some of the most destructive laws in the world to apply to Bitcoin. Like the US government still applies know your customer and money laundering laws to Bitcoin, even though Bitcoin is not legal tender. But making Bitcoin legal tender at least eliminates Bitcoin as an investment vehicle for tax purposes. But I guess they have to spell it out because a lot of communists love to continue to tax everything around them. So this was, of course, like I said, this should have been obvious from the beginning, but it is making the headlines. Should I roll through? Let's roll through everything. Okay, this is like our global section. We have surveys coming out of Brazil that Brazil wants people in Brazil want Bitcoin also to be legal tender. Stories out of Argentina. We heard about Paraguay a little while ago, even though they're probably not going to do it. There's a whole article in NASDAQ about 10 potential countries looking to adopt Bitcoin as legal tender. This list is incredibly strange because they have Nigeria on the list, and their government basically doesn't even want people using their money if they haven't vaccinated. And they've already declared Bitcoin to be completely illegal. So to me, this list makes absolutely no sense unless there's a whole government overthrow and there is someone younger that understands crypto is in charge. Honestly, for me, it's just like it's the Latin American countries. I do not see much hope in Africa yet. I do not see much out of Asia. I certainly don't see anything out of the West, but I see the entire continent of South America and probably even all through Latin America. I really believe that most of Latin America is gonna be adopting Bitcoin, and they can do amazing commerce, and that could be like the hope to save humanity because the West is going in the completely wrong direction. The only other hope is for Texas, Florida, and maybe 20 other states in between to kind of form their own country and also accept Bitcoin as a currency. I loved this tweet right here. So it's another one of these, how it started, how it's going.
Right.
Did you see this?
Yeah. Is this real though? Because it looks photoshopped, the change one.
I don't know, but it's funny. So I wonder if I hope it's real. I don't know, but
I think it is. He has the links there, right?
Yeah, like he has the web
archive. You can click on either one. Yeah.
Look at where it says in the US in the second shot. There's a big space between.
I mean, click on irs.gov. I'm sure you can go find that.
Yeah. So here's one link. Yeah, it's there. Yep. The IRS website has an extra space.
What?
No, that proofreading where.
I thought it was fake because of the formatting there. Wow, they just they got like one guy to change it in a hurry. Like what?
Yeah, it's a
government bureaucracy. They can't even copy edit well. Yeah.
Yeah. So. Yeah, so the IRS had said, like before it said, but it does not have legal tender status in any jurisdiction, and now it says
they've changed it to America, right?
Yeah, it does not have legal tender status in the U.S. Though I think they're also missing a period here, right? Like if you're gonna put U.S. with period, you need another one. Otherwise, you just got to put U.S. with no periods. Anyway, and I'm the immigrant here on this show. Okay. So let me close the IRS website, not something I want on my computer. And all right, guys, general thoughts on Bitcoin global adoption. Oh, and I forgot about Ukraine. And Ukraine made Bitcoin legal, not legal tender, but at least you're not a criminal anymore for using Bitcoin. The article makes it clear. It's important to note that even though Bitcoin is now legal in Ukraine, which means your business can hold it, your business can accept it, it does not mean that Bitcoin is legal tender in the country, which again applies to the tax rules that if your Bitcoin goes up in value, the wealth that you generated by hodling Bitcoin is probably taxed. By making it legal tender, that tax burden is lifted. And I think this is generally a very good thing because the money laundering laws are going to apply to Bitcoin, whether it's legal tender or not. So it's a net positive. All right, guys. Your thoughts on global adoption, where you see it's going. Also another article about Ukraine potentially mining Bitcoin because they have a lot of nuclear reactors. Anyway, let's do it.
Go for it, Jimmy.
Jimmy.
I'm going to ramble a bit, so go for it, Jimmy.
All right. So first of all, the Chivo wallet that you mentioned as sort of the first story is the wallet that the El Salvador government created for the use of everybody in El Salvador. So I think it is natively Spanish and so on. And, at least at the beginning, there was some like personal info that was being sent back. I wouldn't necessarily recommend the use of this unless you need that support in El Salvador or whatever. Use a normal Lightning wallet. There's probably a lot of data being sent back and all sorts of stuff like that. But it is kind of cool that they made one for their citizens, and that's what this is all about. It's giving access to people so that they can have a way to pay with Lightning all over the place. What I find interesting about El Salvador's Bitcoin adoption is that Lightning is very prominent. And all these companies already have Lightning adoption. So Starbucks, McDonald's, Wendy's, they all are allowing Lightning payments for their stuff. And think about like how many exchanges in the United States and abroad don't have Lightning integration yet. And yet these companies were able to do it in the span of a couple months. Just because it was kind of mandated in El Salvador. So, that doesn't speak very well to all of the exchanges and,
Jimmy, let's give them a break. Right? It only took 4 years for blockchain.info to integrate SegWit.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous,
got
right?
there. They just got to SegWit.
And they're not even exchanged. They're just, what are they, a block explorer and a wallet?
Yeah.
They're the most popular wallet in the world.
Yeah. And so that means they don't even have to deal with shitcoin integration. That was literally political, I think, because they're a big Bcash pusher. So SegWit is.
Well, that and the fact that the only reason they adopted it, from what I've heard, is that their CEO, Peter, one more Peter, I forget his last name, but he was speaking at Bitcoin 2021, and he wanted to make sure that when he went on stage, he wasn't booed or asked about why haven't you adopted SegWit. So he made sure that it was there in time for it. But regardless, so that's El Salvador. There's obviously Lightning integration, lots of people using it. And the remittance, I think, is going to be the big thing that changes. A lot of other Latin American countries talking about it: Guatemala, Peru, Brazil, Argentina. Like they're all talking about it. They'll all be watching El Salvador closely to see what kind of investment they get and what kind of enthusiasm, whether it helps with new businesses and import export and so on. But they're all watching closely, and they want to know if it helps them and so on. Ukraine, that feels more to me sort of like, okay, they want some clarity. There is talk about them possibly making it legal tender. But El Salvador has basically opened the conversation in all of these places, and I think that's a very good thing. We don't, it's not going to be obvious like what the impact is until after this stuff has been going for a few years. If El Salvador, for example, gets a lot of foreign investment, a lot of people moving in, a lot of new goods and services and so on, you can bet that a lot of Central American countries, possibly a lot of South American countries, maybe even Eastern Europe countries will adopt it, maybe even an African country, who knows? Although I tend to agree with Tone that those are the governments that are the most stubborn and least likely to try any of this stuff. But I can see this becoming a thing in the next 5 years or so.
Yeah, my opinion on this stuff is that I don't want to go too zoomed out, too big picture on it, but at least I can share kind of a perspective that's been brewing lately, which is in my head, which has been that, well, I mean, you were all there at the Bitcoin Standard Conference. Like, it really is a personal revolution when you go into Bitcoin. It doesn't really make that much sense outside of sort of the technical logistical ramifications. When a country comes along and makes it legal tender, it in 95% of the time, it doesn't make any difference. If you were sitting there as an El Salvadorian on Bitcoin Beach accepting Bitcoin, if your government makes it legal tender, it kind of makes no difference to anything, except there are certain areas where you're like, it's going to change this and it's going to change that. And obviously it's huge that Starbucks and places like that would be taking it in your country. But aside from that, it doesn't make that, there's a lot of ways in which it doesn't make any difference. So those African countries, like if Nigeria want to act like that, if they want to do stuff like that, people can just carry on and go ahead and do it anyway. And now that a country has made it legal tender, other countries can have businesses in it that just sort of adopt it and go for it, regardless of what their government's doing, right? So they can just, whatever, we're just going to do it. Like, if you're in a third world country, an African country where your local currency is just so bad, it's a no-brainer. Just adopt it, get it happening anyway. Ignore what your government's doing, and that's where it comes in. The bigger picture perspective on this whole thing is that things are about to change. Things are really in flux at the moment. Everything is very turbulent, and there's no obvious place to go to escape it. I say that having just fled to Mexico from Canada. There's no obvious place to go to escape what's going on at the moment, which means that the rebellion against it is necessarily going to be happening all over the place at once, with just individuals all standing up to it saying, no, I'm not going to do this. Yes, I'm going to do that. And the fact that that's now sort of inevitable, it's not going to be a world war kind of scenario where you have East versus West or anything like that. It's literally just people all over the planet, I think, in their various jurisdictions say, well, I'm locked in Australia, I'm locked in here, and I'm going to stand up to it. I'm not going to take the back. So I'm going to do, I mean, there can be just Bitcoiners popping up all over the world. And we can have a situation where you see the power of Bitcoin. It's that either person revolution rather than we the people in America. It's going to be I the person all over the place, and therefore I think
Mechanic, I'm gonna push back on it a little bit. I think it is a big deal that El Salvador made it a legal tender, even for the people that were using Bitcoin on Blockchain Beach over in El Salvador. Now, I personally would have preferred El Salvador doing more what Ukraine did, plus telling people Bitcoin is not subject to taxation, plus doing what MicroStrategies did. Like that would have been my preferred method. Now, I am happy how they're able to get all of these businesses, especially like American multinational businesses or global businesses, to start accepting Bitcoin so quickly. I'm very impressed. I'm a little surprised. Maybe I'm a little skeptical in nature overall, but my perfect plan for El Salvador would have been combine what MicroStrategies did with what Ukraine did, plus what Portugal did, because Portugal doesn't tax crypto gains. You combine those three regulations, and that is the best of both worlds. Now, the most important thing that they did by making it legal tender is that they told all of these people on Blockchain Beach, you are not criminals, which is the opposite of what Nigeria told all of their people, you are all criminals. Okay, so I do think it's important that the government makes it clear to people that using Bitcoin in commerce or just storing it will not cause you any legal harm from the authorities. I think that's important, very important.
It's definitely good to clarify that. And I mean, I dismissed that a little bit too readily, just because most jurisdictions on the planet, that is already the case. The minute you make any sort of clarification about how it's taxed, you tell everyone, okay, well, it is legal to use it. So that's been done in Europe, in North America, and there's a Wikipedia on it. Bitcoin is either it's unclear or actually illegal, but only in like 7 or 8 countries, I think. Vietnam was one, and I think they've gone back on it.
But I know, but when Bitcoin is in a no man's land, like like Ukraine a week and a half ago before the news, you don't know if it's legal or illegal, and you will only find out if there's someone at your door that lets you know. You know what? Because if they decide to make it illegal, they have the option of arresting half a dozen people to make an example as to why it is now illegal. So this is where this clarity, I believe, is very important, because of that risk may be too much for some people to take, and then they will use it more carefully versus using it more openly.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, Jimmy, final thoughts on global adoption? We got 2 more general topics.
I think you guys said all that needs to be said. Let's move on.
All right.
There is some stuff to comment on when it comes to the actual wallet itself. There was a couple of bugs that may be worth mentioning about. The main one was when you paid a Lightning invoice, your full name would show up if you were using the Chivo wallet, which is not good. So that's not even like an ambiguous thing. That's genuinely, you need to fix that. That's a bug. Like, your full name shouldn't be there every time you make a transaction, like buying a coffee or whatever. That's not good. And then also, people couldn't withdraw Lightning funds until they'd moved around from Chivo wallet to Chivo wallet a fair few times. And there were a couple of wrinkles like that. But otherwise, I've got to say, as you were pointing out, the rollout went very well. And other than that, Brian Armstrong never ever once tweeted the words El Salvador or Bitcoin in the last 6 months or something like that. So it's just embarrassing how like, you can search his whole Twitter, he's never said the words. So just how, meanwhile he's crying about the SEC. So he's completely not even a part of this world anymore, of the Bitcoin world.
No, he's not. And I've been referring to, I mean, he's had me blocked on Twitter in what feels like forever. And my view on Brian Armstrong of Coinbase is, imagine a Jeff Bezos who hates online shopping with a passion, but continues to remain CEO of Amazon. That is basically my view of Brian Armstrong.
Yep.
Okay, so some other notable CEOs in the news. We have Cathie Wood of ARK Invest, who's looking at a $500,000 Bitcoin price by 2026. This is actually similar to a Twitter poll I put out. I actually didn't even see the date when I pulled up that headline. It is similar to a poll I put out recently, and I would love to get your opinion on this. The poll I tweet out, COVID is really like messing with my mind. Where's my poll? Oh, here's the poll. So we just found the 700,000th Bitcoin block, and at the current rate, the 1 millionth Bitcoin block will be found in approximately 5.5 years. So let's assume a random date of January 1st, 2027. So around the same time, Cathie Wood's date for 500,000. What will happen first? A $1 million Bitcoin price or the 1 millionth block? Think about that question for a minute. Also in CEO news, Michael Saylor is at it again. I keep telling people, stop letting Michael Saylor buy all the Bitcoin. Beat him to it. Let him pump it for you. But they went ahead and bought another 5,000 Bitcoin, totaling their investment to 3.1 million. MicroStrategy billion, sorry. And I guess there were others. I really thought that more companies would start buying Bitcoin by now, because it's been a good 6 to 9 months since Michael Saylor kind of changed the view on this, and it shouldn't take more than 6 months to clear it with your board. So I did expect more
Willie was saying.
Yeah.
Willie was saying there's a few that are going to come out with announcements about it at some point, Q3 or Q4.
Yeah, so right now we're in September. So yeah, Q4 starts next month. So probably at the next earnings meetings for a lot of companies, and earnings are coming in October. So probably the October earnings calls, there's going to be some interesting announcements. And I haven't even thought about that yet, because I kept talking about like the 6-month deadline, the 6-month time period for corporates to get it approved. And I was wondering what is going to drive the price of Bitcoin into 100,000 at the end of the year. And now, you put 2 and 2 together, and corporate earnings are throughout October. And I think enough companies are going to announce their Bitcoin purchases or their intention to do it, that the Bitcoin price is really going to fly. All right. So Mechanic, your thoughts on these headlines, and what do you think? 1 million block or $1 million Bitcoin first?
Yeah, that's another 300,000 blocks, right? So that's roughly a bit under 50% of the time Bitcoin's been around, which is 13 years. So we're looking at like 5 years.
It's gonna be early 2027.
So that's bearish. All of these price predictions are bearish, in my opinion, and not so much because of Bitcoin's awesomeness, but more just because of the absolute state of money printing and just general recklessness that's going on. And bless them, the central banks, they can't help it anymore. Like, even if I assume good intentions, they just can't stop. They've butchered their own economies. They've got everyone used to not wanting to work. And, I think Bitcoin is around 2025, I think it suddenly just stops making sense to measure Bitcoin in dollars. I genuinely think that. And then it starts to become...
For me, that date is closer to 2030. Like 2028, 2029 is when it stops making sense measuring Bitcoin in dollars. But it can certainly happen, one halving cycle earlier.
Yeah, I think that was always my perspective. It was 2030. It was going to take 20 years roughly for Bitcoin to go from nothing to being the dominant everything. But COVID accelerated everything, right? So I do think it's reasonable to see it around 2025. Maybe that's a little optimistic, but to be honest, I'm already on a Bitcoin standard, and it's not going to be long before a lot of people join me. Like, I know how much meat I can buy. I know how much property I can buy. I know how much a car costs in terms of Bitcoin. I genuinely think that way. I have been for a while, and it's only 2021. So I really don't feel like it's ridiculous that in 4 years, like, the people that are ahead of the curve, like 10% of the planet is doing it that way, even if the majority still isn't. I think Yeah, I think around 2025 is when you should be on a Bitcoin standard. You should be thinking in terms of Bitcoin when you're doing your finances.
All right, Mechanic, let me go to Jimmy. He's got 15 more minutes for us before a hard stop. I actually think it was more the election and the election results and the way the election took place in the US, what is going to accelerate the destruction of the dollar than COVID, but they're both obviously a factor. All right, Jimmy, your views on these, and then our next story is going to be Bitcoin's Bitcoin Core release 22.0.
Okay, well, I mean, Cathie Wood is a superstar fund manager at this point, and anytime she says anything, people are going to pay attention. But you know, I honestly like the 500,000, 1 million, like these predictions. At that point, I don't think dollars mean that much. I think past somewhere around, 400,000 or so. I think we're gonna start looking at a hyperinflation scenario for the dollar.
All right, so let me, okay, so Jimmy, hold on. Let me change the question slightly then, right? Because that is the dilemma, right? A $1 million Bitcoin price, is it due to Bitcoin's, expansion and Bitcoin adoption, or is it due to US dollar inflation? So let's normalize it a little bit. Let's say $1 million purchasing power of Bitcoin, what today buys you $1 million. So let's remove inflation. Do you think Bitcoin has a shot of, let's say, going to $1 million while the dollar remains at less than 5% inflation?
Yeah, well, so it's a really hard question to ask, because what you're asking is, okay, how do we normalize the dollar? Because in a sense, it's been continuously expanding for a very long time. So
yes,
if you try to normalize the dollar, you're not going to be very successful, because we haven't been able to normalize the dollar. It's hard to figure out, okay, what was a dollar worth last year versus this year? If you look at like grocery store prices, for example, for meat, it's like doubled in the last 2 years, right? Like I go and try to buy a ribeye. It's $20 a pound right now at Costco.
You need to get to Mexico. It's about $5 for 500 grams, bone in, grass fed.
The thing is, like, a couple of years ago, it was $8.99 a pound. So like it's expanding like crazy. It's extremely difficult to measure when the measuring stick, which is supposed to be the US dollar, continues to change. So I don't know if I can really answer that question, because I'm not sure such a measuring stick really exists. The closest thing we have is actually Bitcoin. So the question that you're asking is, will it have $1 million worth of value as it is currently? Eventually, yes, but again, I'm not sure that the dollar is going to have that much meaning once we get to those like kind of crazy numbers that we're talking about. Seem crazy now, but by then it's just going to feel normal. But there's something like just really, yeah. We'll definitely be using sats at $1 million. It's 1 sat per cent, so it'll be very easy to figure out. But yeah, it's the current sort of like monetary regime and so on. It's just so out there and wacko, and they really don't know what they're doing. And yeah, I expect some fireworks before then, and I fear that there's going to be a lot of violence and things like that when you have $500,000 Bitcoin and so on.
All right, so let's go ahead, Mechanic, real quick before
go for it. Yeah, let's get on to the new upgrade in Bitcoin Core, because Jimmy.
Let's talk about the Bitcoin Core upgrade. I'm not even going to try to explain this. Jimmy, floor is yours.
Yeah, so there's a bunch of upgrades in this one. I think you can use hardware wallets in the Bitcoin Core wallet GUI and stuff like that. There's also like Taproot updates that are in a major release for the first time. There's a bunch of other things that will make it run smoother and so on. I would encourage an upgrade, depending on, what your perspective on upgrades is. Some people want to not upgrade until like at least like 6 months of it being out, just in case there's anything weird. I2P is a little bit interesting because it's an alternative to Tor, and it does have better encryption capabilities and things like that. But I don't actually know that many people that use it, and it tends to be horrendously slow whenever I've used it. But it is available if you want to use I2P for syncing your node and so on, which you might want to do. But yeah, go ahead.
Can I ask you to comment? Do you think I2P avoids like timing attacks that you get with Tor and stuff? Would you think it's potentially a stronger network?
Yeah, I believe the way I2P works is that you basically have an encryption key on both sides, and everything is like sort of sent that way. And it makes it a lot easier from an architectural standpoint to hide stuff. I mean, I'm not sure if you can avoid timing attacks entirely. Those are very difficult to stop just because, like you can't control time necessarily. So, but there's some interesting applications of I2P. But again, it's kind of slow. Not that many people use it, whereas Tor, it's a lot faster and a lot more people use it. So yeah.
All right. Well, speaking of core developers, here's my proof of stake dinner with Adam back from last night.
Nice.
I need to tweet this out.
Is he carnivore?
I don't think he's carnivore, but he didn't.
He likes steak.
Besides, yeah, he likes steak. He had fish, and I also kind of wanted fish, but I needed the proof of stake picture, so I went with bone-in ribeye, which wasn't even on their menu, but they had one at the steakhouse.
How is it in Malta?
Well, that's a kind of very open-ended question. More specific.
How is the meat in
how's
Malta?
The steak in Malta?
I meant the meat.
It's okay. It's okay, but it's hard to find a proper ribeye. And you guys know where a proper ribeye is. It's the cowboy cut ribeye is the proper ribeye. Well, no, I'm not a huge fan of the tomahawk, but I like the cowboy cut. That's like that, just a bone-in, 5 to 750 gram ribeye. You can make them thicker a little bit, but yeah, they're a little hard to find. Usually they have like that Argentinian ribeye, which is like off the bone, and it's like doesn't really feel right. But yeah, food here is pretty good, especially the seafood, because you're in an island in the middle of the Mediterranean. All right, hey, back to Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And this is of course all Taproot compatible. Finally, everything is good to go.
Yeah, we're gonna get activation in a couple months, so that'll be exciting.
Anything people need to know about Taproot? They really do need to upgrade their nodes, right?
Yeah, wallets really are the ones that have to upgrade and like get that, like develop, strategies and stuff. If you're interested in that stuff, you should read the OpTech newsletter, because David Harding has had pretty long running series about things that you can upgrade with Taproot, and like suggestions on how your wallet can be changed to take advantage of some of these features.
Yeah, remember, you can still not even have SegWit, not even have the SegWit upgrade, right? And be fine. Like I don't know if people like need to upgrade their nodes. There's a lot of sort of peer pressure, if peer-to-peer pressure they call it, right? For people to upgrade, you'll be all right if you don't. Like you don't need to panic. And I think already we've got, last time I looked, it looked a lot healthier, the amount of people that have upgraded to something enforcing, right? But that would only have been 21.1. So yeah, I think you'll be all right. As far as I can tell, you don't need to panic. As Jimmy says, it's still another 2 months.
All right, one last topic. Jimmy, you sent over this story. Nuclear power is an untapped opportunity for Bitcoin mining. Before you go on, I just want to point out about nuclear power, okay? So here's where it baffles me. It's the same stuff with, I don't want to get too political, but it's the same thing that, the unvaccinated are killing the vaccinated because they're Anyway, it's the same like doublespeak, where you have these environmentalists that are screaming about global warming and climate change and fossil fuels, and at the same time are against nuclear power. This is even a dumber contradiction than the unvaccinated are killing the vaccinated, because anyway.
Even look, man, it's the same example every time you get government, like the war on terror just created so much so much animosity and hostility towards America. You know, every time, like, and if you want to inject everyone, turns out the most injected countries with the COVID vaccine are having the worst amount of cases and deaths. Like, so it's just literally, it's almost like a ironic sense of humor in the universe that, like, when governments try to do something, they'll make the problem worse. It just and it's like that old socialist one, like if you put the government in charge of the Pacific Ocean, in a month there'd be a shortage of water, right?
Same. I think Milton Friedman said that about sand, right? But like real quick, right? So that's the hypocrisy of it. Now, I am not a fan of nuclear power. I'm not. But I'm also not. I'm not. But I'm also not a global warming, climate change, crazy, right? So you got to be consistent, right? The problem is inconsistency. I can make an argument against nuclear energy, but I'm also not screaming. Like if you are screaming that current power generation is not clean enough, then you should be pro-nuclear energy. I'm not denying that nuclear power is not clean. It's just that I am very concerned on the storage of nuclear waste and the Chernobyl and Fukushima, and more of these disasters can happen. I've always been afraid of a solar flare that could knock out the electric grid for an extended period of time, which means nuclear reactors will melt down. Like I just think that the potential risk of nuclear energy is greater than the cleanness of its power, but I also am not a climate change crazy. So
have you looked into the newer types of reactors? Have you looked into the newer types of reactors? Because I believe things like Chernobyl are just no longer possible if you were to build a nuclear plant today rather than use something with technology from the 60s.
The problem is that a lot of this new technology that's supposed to be really safe, it is very expensive and it's mostly theoretical, and it has not been applied. And most of the world has zero interest in decommissioning old nuclear power plants. And the problem is you can't, because they were built in a really bad way originally. You're stuck with not being able to properly secure that nuclear waste. It's a bigger problem that they like to let on. Again, I'm not an expert in this. I have my geology degree. I probably know a little bit more about this than the average person, but not my expertise. I'm just saying, at least be consistent. I am at least consistent. Not a fan of nuclear, but I'm also not into the whole climate change bullshit.
No, I agree with you for sure on that one. There's something about nuclear power that on paper it makes sense, and I understand why people defend it to the level they do, and how it can appear irrational and sort of, nuclear, scary, Chernobyl. Like, we can look a little bit irrational with that. But as you say, the problem of nuclear waste does remain, and there's just genuine instability, right? Like, what happens if the ratio?
Sorry, I got 3 minutes for Jimmy to actually talk about nuclear power and Bitcoin mining.
The nice thing about nuclear power is that it produces like really steady energy for a long time, and the thing is, when you add Bitcoin mining to it, what you can essentially do is adjust it basically to demand. And because you get this very steady supply, whenever there's less demand, say when people are sleeping, you can use that to go mine, and that extra energy to go mine. And when there's peak, you just don't mine at all. And there's this stabilization of the energy grid that Bitcoin allows. And there's a lot of opportunity in a lot of this nuclear energy that's being produced that I think Bitcoin can really take advantage of. And this is true of almost all energy, but nuclear has that property of being constantly sort of like producing energy. And you don't really necessarily up it or down. You can't, it's just a constant stream. So it's a very interesting thing. I think it's a good thing that whatever nuclear energy is already out there. I think it makes sense to go use. But anyway, regardless, I do have to get going. Are you going to keep going for a little bit more or what?
I was gonna move on straight into the price. The mempool is fairly empty. Stick around for 30 seconds, Jimmy. I am now fully bullish across the board on everything. I was waiting for yesterday's candle to get back above both moving averages with the golden cross, which also took place yesterday. I was hoping the current green star candle would have crossed to yesterday's candle at a lower price, closer to 46,000. It ended up crossing at 47,000. I've been making it very clear on my channel that the MRI bottom was to come in today, but we turned nicely yesterday. So my title of yesterday's video was as Bitcoin reversed a day or two early, and to me, it clearly has. I am now fully bullish. I believe Bitcoin is headed significantly higher, and I think this current upswing will take us above the all-time high sometime into next month.
Woohoo! That's exciting.
Beautiful.
All right. Yeah, I did see that. Like we had we have a nice candle going today, so we got like 47.9 right now, somewhere around there. So
we're
50K, we're gonna be back soon.
Yeah, so on the longer term charts, I have been comparing the current environment to the 2013 environment, and it lines up absolutely perfectly in terms of time and in terms of price momentum, but obviously not in terms of price velocity. So we topped here in April of 2013. We topped here in April of 2021. The price swing low took place right away, but the more realistic price low that you could have easily bought Bitcoin at took place in July, which is identical to the price low we had at 28,000 here in July. We are now back close to the vicinity of the original high of April, sitting here in September. There was a little bit of a scare on October 1st with the shutdown of Silk Road. Gave people one final opportunity to buy in October. We may still have that a little bit. And then we broke out to new all-time highs in very late October, early November, and rallied into December. I see the same thing. I see us getting back to 65,000 either late this month or sometime in October. And then November, December is a breakout into the 100K zone.
Amazing. I'm super
exciting.
Yep.
I'm bullish as heck, guys.
Right. On a percentage note, this makes total sense as well. If we look at the percentage increase throughout 2013, it was approximately, it was, 1,000%. It was like, I think I'm a little low there. It went from $10 to $1,000. That's a huge percentage. That is 1,000%. That is 100x move. So we go from 100x move in 2017. We had a 20x move. We started the year at approximately $1,000. I'm just going to use ballpark numbers. We started at about 1,000. We went to 20,000. So we went from a 100x move. We divided that by 5. We went to a 20x move. I believe this year and this bull cycle is a 10x move. I don't expect it to be 20x. I don't expect it to be as big as 2017. But I think this year can do a 10x move. We started the year at approximately $10,000. So it makes total sense for us to close the year at approximately 100,000. This would be not as intense as the 2017 one. And I think that's a good area for one more pullback. We can go as high as 150 before a pullback. And I don't think you'll be able to buy Bitcoin under $30,000 ever again, unless it's some kind of a black swan event. Under normal conditions, I think it'll be hard to even buy it under 40,000 going forward.
Awesome. All right, I gotta go. Fiat Leyendas. This song is done, and bye.
All right. Hey, thanks, Jimmy. I didn't get to promote Jimmy stuff, but we can do that without Jimmy here. Programming. Wow, it's been a while.
See you, man. Good to see you. Oh, he's gone.
All right, Jimmy's gone, but I'll pimp his stuff. Programming Bitcoin. There's other books. Thank God for Bitcoin, the little Bitcoin book. You can go through the website. Programming blockchain, locations. I'm not sure if he's still going to London. Let us see. I know he was going to be speaking in London. No, London is gone. So Atlanta, November 2 to 3. And I will do my best to convince Jimmy to come to Dubai for Understanding Bitcoin. I doubt he'd stick around for the financial summit, but he'll be welcome. All right. Mechanic, you want to talk about anything else, man? We got a few more minutes.
Yeah, so I just I sent in the news show Telegram, Bitcoin Meme Hub tweeted he did a Twitter search for Brian Armstrong's uses of the word El Salvador, and he said he's never used it. So it's a funny thing to see. Yeah, it's just, how could you do that? Like, you run one of the biggest exchanges in the world, and then you have all these people like Balaji and all that saying, isn't it exciting? El Salvador's accepting crypto, and they use this word crypto. They never use the word Bitcoin, and it's shameful, man. It's absolutely shameful.
They're shitcoiners, borderline scammers. I mean, they're trying to convince people to buy into fiat currency because they're just fiat people.
Yeah, it hurts. Like, it's a shame that you're so close to something so good, but Bitcoin has this sort of exhaust pipe, or this waste that it has to produce this. Like, if you think about it in a holistic perspective, what Bitcoin is and how it leverages the true motivations of humans in order to make a system that you can rely on. It doesn't work against human incentives like politics always does. It works in favor of them. You don't have to rely on anyone's good nature. You can just rely on people's self-interest to bolster the system, and it's a positive feedback loop where the more that happens, the bigger Bitcoin gets, the more reliable it gets, the more robust it gets, the less fragile it gets, all of those things. But then you have the fact that it exists in the world means you have this offshoot and this nasty scam industry that has to exist at the same time. That this is where I always end up disagreeing with you, is that I think we're going to have this shitcoin waste outlet just forever. I just don't think we're ever going to be able to get rid of it, and Bitcoin eventually will reach escape velocity where it just goes up forever, but you still just have these ankle biting cryptos coming along for the ride, and they're just never going to go. Like, it's too difficult a casino for anyone to stop. It's like if gambling was invented, but instead of it just being in Las Vegas or something like that, it was worldwide straight away and impossible for any state or jurisdiction to stop. So I just think it goes on forever.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. Hey, Bitcoin Meme Hub, shout out. Thanks for watching the channel, man. He must have caught us live. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. One quick peek at the price, because I noticed the 1 hour chart. 1 hour chart is coming into an MRI warning candle, and we have 37 minutes to go. So there's probably going to be a little bit of a pullback later today, guys. I mean, we've gone up quite a bit. We went pretty much straight up for almost $4,000 since the scam news broke. Off the breakout level, we're up about $2,000. So I think we're going to reverse before hitting 48,000. Just short term on the hourly scale, unless the 4 hour chart tells me otherwise.
We hit a 9 on the 4 hour and just sailed straight past it and carried on going up.
Yeah, let me see. Oh, my indicator did not load. Why didn't you load? Let's see.
That red doji is the 9.
Oh, this right there. Yeah. Okay. So so when that happens as a trader, it did drop us down a little bit, right? It is a 4 hour chart. You hit the MRI top and you drop down. You did drop down, almost $1,000. You went down 1.5% over a 3 to 4 hour time period. And yeah, when this green star candle shows up, you're back in the bull zone. So now the 4-hour chart is bullish. It's breaking the moving average. The 1 hour could hold us down, maybe take us back down to as low as probably keeping us above 47 over the next few hours. And then we're probably going to break 48K by end of day today.
I'm ready to say once we get above 50, this is the last time we ever see Bitcoin below 50K again, even though it might not be, but I'm ready to say it.
Possible. It's it's very possible. I'm waiting for that escape velocity when it gets close to 60, only because that was the prior swing high. But 50 is a nice round number. I'm pretty sure that buying it under 40 is almost unheard of now. And pretty soon I'll agree with you. Take us past 60, and I'm going to say buying it under 50 is going to be a miracle. I mean, you're going to have cojones of steel waiting for a $150,000 Bitcoin and then timing the crash properly to buy it back at 50. And that's a risk.
So, Tone, as you say, your Twitter feed has totally been taken over by COVID and politics, and that's it. Like, you barely tweet about Bitcoin anymore, right? So,
it's both. I'm both fans, right? So when I go to my Twitter feed and I look at my homepage, like the majority of the people I follow are constantly tweeting anti-COVID. And the thing is, and here's this crazy part, I was following these people before COVID even existed. I mean, this whole thing has really shown me, and I really want to tweet this out. There was one guy, hold on, let me find real quick. But say what you want to say. Go ahead. Sorry, I interrupted you.
All I was going to say is when political channel.
I don't know, man. I don't know if I can manage another channel. I've been dying to start understanding Bitcoin channel. So there was one of the Nicki Minaj's tweets.
Oh yeah, about her cousin's friend's swollen testicle having his wedding called off. It was more just that the media totally mischaracterized what she said, right?
Right,
she said something totally rational, which is, I don't know. There are different vaccines, right? So I'm going to do some research on which one I should take. And everyone's like, anti-science. Like, what? But that's not anti-science. Is anyone pretending that all 4 of the vaccines are the same? Because they're obviously not. Like,
so, man, I mean, we can have the show go on and on and on. You and I need to talk about this COVID stuff. But what happened was, to her tweets, right, this one guy tweeted out how he's like laughing. He's saying, like, anyone that says I'm doing my own research is basically an idiot. You can't do your own research. You're not a doctor, this and that. And I completely disagree with that. Your ability to do research on any subject is only limited by your IQ. If you are smart enough, you can do it. I have 3 STEM degrees. I have a degree in a hard science, I have a mathematics degree, and I have an engineering degree. And I could have spent less time in university getting a medical degree than what I did. So I believe I am capable of doing my own research, even in the medical field. And most people are smart enough to do it. More importantly, every single scientist disagree in every single field. And it's incredibly important for a person to identify, which scientists are, more respected and more trusted. As an example, on Wall Street, I used to manage developers. I am a shit developer. I can barely read a line of code, but I manage developers. And the reason I was able to manage developers is because I was able to properly assess which developers know what the hell they're doing and which developers do not know what the hell they're doing, okay? And that's how you can be a developer manager without the ability to actually read code. And this is totally doable. And this also applies to science. You can figure out which set of doctors actually knows what the hell they're talking about and which set of doctors are complete idiots, okay? Mm-hmm. Now, are you gonna be right in every single case? No. Can you be right 90+% of the time? Absolutely, okay? And this is this is the problem that people just don't understand, because most science, when it's funded by the government, it's problematic and it should be way more skeptical. And what happened with my Twitter feed, real quick, back to my Twitter feed, 90% of the Bitcoiners the developer Bitcoiners that I respected are anti this COVID and vaccine nonsense. And that told me I was following the right people. There were a few exceptions, very few, but the majority of the people who I respected before the COVID and the election were on the same side as me for the COVID stuff. And that could have gone either way.
Yeah, I agree. Like it's a combination, right? Everyone is a scientist naturally. It's all about repeatability, and just because someone else is able to do it doesn't mean you shouldn't be able to do it. What I mean with regard to the actual experimentation, right? If someone says, "Oh, if you do X, Y will happen," as demonstrated in the following experiment, you should be able to repeat it, right? That's the essence of science. But then it turns into like, this other game, which is religion, right? Which is I have faith in what these people are saying, and it's no longer, to use religion as a metaphor, it's no longer God. It's about what your priest says. It's not about anything to do with God anymore. So I just think the modern day is just science is now a religion because humans have to have a religion, and science is the dominant religion. And I mean, I don't mean that. I don't mean the scientific method is religious, because it's not. There's no superstition involved in it. There's no faith-based element. But what I am saying is the way people say trust the science, that implies some sort of faith-based position, which is anti-scientific by nature. So it's this whole meme that's come out of it saying trust the science trademark. Like that's very deliberately done to shine a light on the fact that people are treating scientists like they're priests, and that you should just trust them, and that their understanding is greater than yours. And that's not the way science is supposed to work. And as you say, most of what you see is not science, it's advocacy. It's just, and this is a point that's been made as well. It used to always say in newspapers, studies show, blah, 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 studies show. Now it just says experts say. That's the new thing that they say. They don't say studies show anymore. They just say experts say wear 3 masks. Experts say the 4th jab poses no risk to whatever. There's not even saying there's a study anymore. So they've just gone with full proof of authority, really. And that's what
literally
say.
Like the Babylon Bee has been like the best science I've seen so far this year. Yeah. And what was the other thing I was going to mention on? Look, here's the thing. People have this problem that they're using one-offs as obsolete. Like people are saying, the smartest doctor in the world could be wrong. I agree. Everybody agrees that the smartest person can be wrong. The probability of the smartest person being wrong is smaller than the dumbest person being wrong, okay? So yes, your IQ does matter, okay, in this case. Also, the majority of high quality scientists will generally be correct. But when the supermajority of scientists are funded by government with an agenda, you have to discount their views unless they want to be doing this independently, but they're not doing it independently. So you have to discredit a lot of the stuff funded by the government, and you have to rely on more independent people. Just like I will trust the independent Bitcoin developer who chose not to be paid by anyone over one that is being paid by someone. But there aren't that many independent ones left, but they do get, like Peter Todd is one of my most respected people in the crypto space, and he's independent. Luke Dash Jr. is another one. Luke Dash Jr. is one of those exceptions who I don't agree with on the COVID stuff, but Peter Todd and lots of other developers, some of them don't want to get political, but I know they're on the right side of the COVID debate.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to bring up Peter Todd myself. I think that was one other thing I just wanted to touch on is, there are topics in which you might be really clever. You might have a really high IQ. I mean, but there are topics you just don't really know that much about, and you listen to the experts. Like, I still would rather listen to if there's something to do with Bitcoin that I don't understand fully, I'm gonna defer to Luke. I'm gonna defer to Peter Todd and Jimmy as well, because they have good understanding, and there's a proof of work element, right? They built a reputation, and the incentives are right. Like, I know what they're going to be saying to me is somewhat trustworthy just because of how they align themselves. But then when you got government, like, I'm sorry, but scientists are going to come up with the results of the people that fund the experiments that they do. It's just the incentive structures of how things work. Like, it's like the nutrition thing we talked about before, where that one guy came up with some evidence that eating animal fat causes heart attacks, and the sugar lobby ran with it. And now we still can't. I'm in Mexico, and everything's still low fat. They still use margarine instead of butter. Like, that's how long this bad science can last, forever. Like, it's so ridiculous. But
and when they do eventually remove the bad science, they don't tell you. Like
again,
the warning
cholesterol
dangers
thing
of high cholesterol has been removed a decade ago, and people still think cholesterol is your biggest problem. The government removed warnings because they were wrong. Cholesterol is not a problem that they said it was. They removed all of it a decade ago, and nobody knows.
Yeah, specifically that was dietary cholesterol has no effect on the cholesterol in your bloodstream or your arteries, right? So you can't not eat cholesterol. If you have a cholesterol problem, it's a genetic thing. It's not a dietary thing. So cut out eggs, cut out anything you want, you're still going to have high cholesterol. Like, that was the reality, right?
Yeah. It's a lot more complicated than that. But like, when I do quit the crypto space, I am going into the nutrition space. We'll get there. All right, hey man.
Are you definitely going to quit?
I'll eventually quit. I mean, I can't do it. I'm already getting slowly burned out. I mean, this is insane. Though COVID and the election had a lot to do with that.
Yeah, man. Well, I think I don't know. At some point, Bitcoin becomes like I'm getting a little bit burnt out of Bitcoin just because it's so obviously already won. Like, it's not just that Bitcoin's amazing.
It's even hard to divide. It's hard to talk about. There's not much Bitcoin news anymore. It's like, yeah, smart people are starting to adopt Bitcoin. We knew this was happening. It's like most of the stories are, explaining to people why shitcoins are bad, and I'm getting tired of it. There's not really much. Like there aren't many people, having educational channels about how to do email and how to search Google. Eventually everybody figures it out, and like eventually people are gonna figure this out.
Yeah, it's like we're wheel maximalists, right? Someone invented the wheel, no one's using it yet, so we're really championing this thing and we're talking about what it's going to do, but eventually it just becomes obvious, right? The internet won, the wheel won, and Bitcoin, in my opinion, won after it defeated the big blockers. That was when I was like, well, there's no battle greater than that, And even the Taproot, there was a little bit of drama around Taproot activation, but it was basically fine. No one even needs to know anything about that, really. It was fine.
Going back to COVID real quick, basically everything that Joe Rogan did to his body to eliminate COVID in less than 3 days is now being deemed illegal and is trying to be eliminated from, like, a doctor even suggesting what Rogan did could get him lose his license. So ridiculous. I mean, you see the agenda right in front of you. Everything that Rogan did, he shouldn't have said what he did, because by him saying what he did to eliminate COVID in 3 days, basically all of that is slowly becoming illegal across the world.
I wanted to ask you, this might even be inappropriate for stream, but I'm going to do it anyway. Canada's got an election in like a week, and it uses Dominion voting system and all that stuff. But people are getting very excited about the anti-vax pass party, PPC, but I just think there's no way. This whole thing, if America can rig like you believe they did, and like I'm sort of pretty much prepared to believe they did, Canada's election's a foregone conclusion, right? Justin Trudeau's
Trudeau's not going anywhere. He is the future Fidel Castro or Hugo Chavez. He's not going anywhere. He will win every election going forward, just like Gavin Newsom is not losing the California recount.
Yeah, he didn't get.
These people would not do this if they did not know they were going to remain in power until they got all of their agendas in.
That was the one thing.
It's over, guys.
There's been an exception to that, though, when Theresa May called a snap election in the UK around the beginning of well, Brexit's dragged on forever, but she called a snap election and lost a bunch of seats. So I was hoping Trudeau is at the end of the day a really stupid person. So I can see him doing that against the advice of his advisors and losing a bunch of seats, because it looks like they're actually going to have fewer seats than they did in the first place, and they were a minority government.
Unless they go to paper voting with proper accountability on the votes, they're going to win the election.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. If you're right, then maybe I just got to stay down here. But I'm still figuring out what exactly to do.
Stay down there, man. Try to stay down there. What was the? Yeah, no, I think that's it. We got to do another show. People are gonna be pissed that we went all political at the end. But hey, guys, well, the Bitcoin part was over. So
sorry about that.
We got to complain a little bit. You having a good time? Enjoying the weather?
Down in Mexico. Yeah, it's absolutely beautiful, man. I mean, we're in Cabo San Lucas at the moment. Obviously, I met up with Jimmy, not Jimmy Song from the stream, but a different Jimmy. It's beautiful. Struggling with the food a little bit. Upset stomachs and stuff. Every morning they just spray everything with just nasty chemicals everywhere just to kill all the bugs. So yeah, it's got, even walking out here this morning, like my feet were burning. I had to go and rinse them off in the pool. So it's a little bit hard. I'm a little pampered. Like up in Canada, everything's super clean. Here, you just got to be careful what you eat but that's one thing. Everything else seems all right. And even when it comes to, I wanted to touch on this earlier, like Brazil's president, he seems so based that I think, I can see them doing Bitcoin and telling the IMF to go
but he won't be reelected though, because the Brazilian president tried to eliminate the minion voting machines with a law and go to paper trackable election ballots, and he couldn't pass the law to for clean old school paper voting.
Yeah, if you don't vote with paper, I don't trust your election. It's as simple as that. I know too much about technology, and
there's
a great
so the Brazilian
Adam
president,
Scott video on it, which is really good. He talks about how every problem you have with insecure elections is made worse by introducing anything electronic about it. There's nothing better than paper and pen. Nothing better.
Yep. Yeah, so the Brazilian president hopefully will, do something before the election, because I do not expect him to get reelected.
Yeah, well, who knows what he's going to do. But I mean, when it comes to, just if we can bring it back to Bitcoin for a second, I'm seeing this whole thing accelerating now. It's going to be a weird and unpredictable, bumpy ride. But no matter what happens to Bitcoin, some jurisdictions are going to be hostile to it in a way that helps it, which is really counterintuitive to understand. Just like Nigeria was a great example of that, which is why I want to read more carefully that article you had pulled up, because that might be one of the most nuanced perspectives I've seen an article have on Bitcoin adoption, if it's thinking the way I'm thinking, because almost no one shares my perspective here, which is when states come after Bitcoin and attack it, they accelerate its adoption and they strengthen the network as a whole. And one of the most annoying things a government can do with regard to Bitcoin is keep it legal and regulated, because then everyone uses companies like Coinbase and they don't take the coins into their own custody and they KYC everything. And it's not ultimately to Bitcoin's benefit that people do that, though it might make your life a little less stressful in the meantime. But countries like Nigeria doing what they did, that was great for Bitcoin. Peer-to-peer trading exploded, the price went up, and people learned that, oh, this is just a thing that works outside of the government's purview anyway. And that's so helpful to a Nigerian that it works. It's great for Nigerians, it's great for Bitcoin, and it makes the government irrelevant. So that's kind of what I want to see happen, and I know will happen.
We'll see.
Well, it's going to happen.
It goes.
There's going to be enough jurisdictions that are hostile to it that they at least create the incentives for their population to use Bitcoin in the way it's supposed to be used, which is buying your coins KYC free and coin joining if you need to, and self-custodying. Like, there's going to be enough of that Bitcoin maintains those qualities. Because if everyone was just Michael Saylor, it's useless, right? Because they just store all their coins with NYDIG. Then it just becomes it loses its initial quality, which is really weird. I think Michael Saylor really understands what Bitcoin is, but he doesn't actually understand how it can maintain those qualities that it has. Because yeah, it's deflationary. It's the perfect thing to own in the context of what the world is at the moment. It's uncensorable, it's uncounterfeitable, it's deflationary, but it only maintains those things because of the way the network is structured. And it can't maintain that if everyone just buys coins and leaves them with third-party custodians like GBTC and and Barry Silbert, whatever he's got, and Coinbase and Binance. If you leave coins with those guys, Bitcoin won't remain deflationary for long. And there's already a worrying amount of coins under the control of big centralized actors like that. So yeah, that's why I kind of need a little bit of hostility from the state in order for Bitcoin to maintain some of its strength. So yeah, as you say, we'll see. But I think I think just a big outlook over the next 5 years. Bitcoin will have a bunch of twists and turns, and things are going to be weird and bumpy and unpredictable. But no matter what happens, just because I know Bitcoin that well now and I've had enough time with it, you're going to see it absolutely explode in price, and you're going to see adoption just absolutely just become so undeniable around the planet that this thing is just going to eat everything. And this is a perspective, I don't want to be hypey, but it's just something that people need to understand is just guaranteed at this point. And it's been guaranteed since we won the block size war, which was 4 years ago now. So this thing is just, it's beyond question. And I never usually get that hypey on it. I'm always focusing on little problems, but Bitcoin is just so undeniable at this point. People need to absolutely wake up.
Yep. All right. On this note, I do got to get going. Thanks for hanging out with us. We're going to try to bring the show back once a week. Once again, for now, Giacomo might be able to join us next week, which will be great. Mechanic, thanks again. I got to get that link up for Start 9. Next time, we'll definitely promote it.
Yeah, I'd love to just give a shout out quickly to my employer, Start 9. They make Embassy OS, which is a platform for self-hosting. It's every app, pretty much every app you're going to need, and some are in the works. But we have a big upgrade, and today is actually the first day I get to use it. But it's being rolled out to some devs we're close to that don't work for the company in a week, and then in 2 weeks to the general public. So 0.3 is finally out on Embassy OS, guys. Well, I mean, it's finally about to be out. It was supposed to be out on July the 4th. We missed the deadline pretty badly, but that's software development, guys. So really excited about that. It's a whole overhaul. It's 130,000 lines of code that have been either written or replaced. So it was a huge amount of work for the guys to do. But yeah, start9.com if you're interested in Embassy OS. We're right around the corner now.
Yeah, I'm gonna add that. I'm gonna add that into my affiliate page. I asked my graphic designer to get me an image, but and he did, but it was like so long ago and I never got it up. So I need to. I'm gonna ask him again. I'll get it up. You'll find it in my affiliate page. All right, guys, we're gonna get going. Thank you all for watching, and see you all on the next one.